James had been staring at the dusty, cracked ceiling of the rehab center for hours. Sleep had eluded him, as it often did these days, replaced by an unrelenting stream of thoughts and memories. He had checked in 2 weeks ago, desperate but unsure if he could ever truly be free from the chains that had bound him for so many years. Addiction had crept into James's life slowly, almost unnoticed. What started as casual drinking during college parties had morphed into a dependence on alcohol and later, drugs. He told himself he had it under control. He was functional, after all. He held down a job, had friends, and kept his family at arm's length to hide the reality. But the facade had crumbled, as it always does. He lost his job, pushed away the people who loved him, and found himself in a downward spiral that seemed impossible to escape. The decision to enter rehab hadn't been his alone. His sister, Emily, had found him passed out in his apartment, surrounded by empty bottles and pill bottles. The look on her face when he woke up was something he couldn't shake, a mix of fear, sadness, and something else that cut deeper than any knife, disappointment. It was Emily who had driven him to the center, her voice trembling as she pleaded with him to get help. He agreed, mostly out of guilt and shame. The first few days were brutal. Withdrawal hit him like a freight train, nausea, sweats, shaking, and an overwhelming sense of dread. But it wasn't just the physical symptoms that tormented him, it was the silence. The absence of the substances he had relied on for so long left a void that echoed with the voices of his past, reminding him of every mistake, every person he had hurt. James had never felt so vulnerable, so exposed. But there was something else, something he hadn't expected, a flicker of hope. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The counselors at the center spoke of recovery not as a destination, but as a journey, a road that would be difficult and full of challenges, but one that was worth taking. He began attending group sessions, listening to others share their stories. He was struck by how similar their experiences were to his own. It was in these sessions that James began to feel a sense of community, belonging. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. He started to open up, tentatively at first, about his struggles, his regrets, and his fears. The group didn't judge him, they understood because they were fighting the same battle. One day, during a particularly difficult session, James found himself speaking about his future, a future he hadn't allowed himself to think about in years. He talked about wanting to reconnect with his family, to find a job that he could be proud of, and maybe, just maybe, to find happiness again. The words felt foreign on his tongue, but as he spoke them, they began to feel real. The road to recovery was not easy. There were days when James wanted to give up, to numb the pain and confusion with the familiar comfort of substances. But each time, he reminded himself of why he was there, of the promise he had made to himself and to Emily.